Welcome to my little keynote. I will talk about the wonderful topic of using augmented reality to create user experiences that are interesting and trigger a special interest, and how to achieve the desired effect of making the invisible visible. My name is Kevin Proesel. I'm the managing director of Sonamos Experiential, and we have been working in the field of AR for the last 7 years. Just to give you a quick introduction of where we come from and what we do, we create marketing campaigns using multi-reality storytelling and experiential content. We have a strong background in content marketing because what we think is that experiential content is the next level of content marketing. We developed the first web TV platform for BMW back in the days. This was 2008, and developed the content distribution even further into the showrooms and creating brand rooms that sort of merged the virtual aspect with the real haptic exhibition aspect, but this wasn't going far enough. So I thought it would be nice to actually create a campaign or an experience in which you could directly jump into a spot of BMW. And this is what I call experiential content. And this is what I have been driving the whole topic in our agency, to create experiential campaigns or experiential experience, if you so want to say. But you might ask yourself, what does experiential content actually mean? To me, it has two meanings. One is diving inside the story to experience it. And this is a wonderful example. Those of you who have kids might know the movie, the most successful movie of all times, Paddington 2. And there's a sequence in which he is opening up a pop-up book of London, and imagining his aunt visiting, and they dive directly into the scene and experience it. And this is something that I thrive to create with experiential content using augmented reality. The second meaning is that we can make the invisible visible. Now think of a museum to understand what I mean. And this is a great example in Frankfurt. This is showing a coral reef. And you might think this is a nice museum, it's an interesting spot, but still it's very old school at the same time. It's not moving. And now think of using augmented reality to actually create an experience in which you can experience what a coral reef is, what a coral is, just by using technology. And this is a great example from Adobe in cooperation with the Smithsonian Museum. And they did 3D scans of the exhibition pieces of the corals that they do have, the specimen, and then created a story around it, which used technology to actually make these exhibitions interactive, three-dimensional, experiential. And this is a great example of how to create experiential content and make it more interesting. And you can use this for all matter of content and for all matter of campaigns if you look into a marketing aspect of that. I have some selected AR cases because the scenarios can be vast. There can be various scenarios. Always keeping in mind that we want to create an experience in which we can make the invisible visible. This again is an example from the Smithsonian Channel this time, and they try to tell us about what happened when Perseverance landed on Mars and what do they want to do with this mission. And you can see the means of augmented reality help us to understand, sort of like in a school book, but only immersive, three-dimensional and interactive, what is happening millions of kilometers away. It can be interactive, and it can help us to understand what is happening there. How did the rover land on Mars? You could even play it. How big is the rover? And what giant rocket was required to actually bring it to Mars? And using augmented reality, actually a simple technology, and the right content, you can create great experiences that help you to understand it. You can even use it in order to illustrate things that seem to be very abstract to us. If climate change will continue like that, we will have global flooding, but show the people what this actually means in their specific location. And this is a great example from Japan. It's called Disaster Scope, and it uses Unity technology and LiDAR technology on the devices in order to create this wonderful, I mean, it's not wonderful, but interesting overlay to illustrate the flood levels if global warming will keep on. Then you can, in the marketing aspect, you can illustrate products. You can make products experiential. This is a great example from Adidas, where they just used a Snapchat filter, leading technology here, created a volumetric scan of a dancer, and then did some pre-production or post-production in 3D and made a filter out of that, which is really interesting. It makes the product visible in front of Adidas ads or in street life, in bigger than life size. And this is something that you can create wonderfully. It's a simple experience, but it triggers the effect because something is happening, and it sells the product right where the community is. Another example using augmented reality more in a sales approach is Massimo Dutti. It's the latest iteration of their application. It's in German, and you can have virtual try-ons. It's a great way to reduce your logistic footprint by pre-testing shoes without going to a store. Also interesting in the Corona and COVID aspects. Then you can use AR to make billboards speak. This is an example from Osmo using a web-based AR technology from Genie. And Osmo is known for creating a learning platform on which children can actively learn by playing and trying to solve puzzles and stuff. And this is something that can happen right on top of a billboard if you're waiting for the bus, illustrating the main product of Osmo. So really, really interesting. You can create augmented reality to have ads becoming interactive, speak to you, instead of just being a plain silent billboard. Then this is an example of what we did in collaboration with the Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, daily newspaper in Germany, and a whole issue of the newspaper used augmented reality to illustrate different topics that were part of the articles, giving it a duplicate or deeper meaning on top of the printed layer, creating a completely new editorial format, which is also interesting. Again, this is an example for an ad in which we just displayed a video on top of the printed ad, and you can see the possibilities here. Super interesting, creating a deeper storytelling level on top of editorial content. And then you can see augmented reality has become part of mainstream. If you look at games, and this is something Lego did earlier this year, they launched, or late last year, they launched a video, which is an interactive game. You buy the figures and you get these little plates with it. And if you scan the plates and the figures, you can have dancing figures inside your playground or playroom or apartment, wherever you want to place it. And you can even interact it and create music videos. It's a great example of how mainstream augmented reality has become, if it's so easy that even children can use it. And the bigger children in us know about this. Wonderful example of mainstream augmented reality. Mario Kart has become virtual, and who has not dreamed of a remote car with a video camera using Wi-Fi, which you could then navigate through your living room. And this is exactly what Nintendo did here. They created a physical racing car with Mario and all his sidekicks that has a camera. And when you drive around in your living room, all additional game content is being displayed additionally through augmented reality, and it's rock solid, it's working, and you have a super guided AR experience. And this is a perfect example of how mainstream augmented reality has become and how beneficial it can be to create games or deeper experiences or great user experiences. Another example, this is super actual. It is for the new Marvel movie that will start, I think, November 5th. Day of this recording is November 3rd. And it illustrates the story of this Marvel universe actually using characters from the movie that guide you through this universe and through the story. And this is another great example of how augmented reality has become part of the merchandise and of the campaigning itself. Super interesting case. You can download it already. Unfortunately, it's only available for Apple iOS systems. And another great topic is virtual fashion. And this is an example from Samsung, where we see that you can use filters to actually wear virtual fashion. It's a great interpretation, and it shows how ready technology already is. A few years ago, this was something you would dream of, but it seemed completely impossible to achieve. And now, through different technologies, this has become almost mainstream, but it will be the next big thing. Great spot to watch if you talk about augmented reality experiences. Now, since we are an agency that focuses on AR campaigning, I have a few hints to those of you who might be interested in actually creating AR experience and how and where to create AR experiences, because augmented reality can happen across multiple platforms and across multiple scenarios. First, of course, we have the native AR apps. You can see that here. It makes sense for all those clients or all those projects that do actually require native API performance, or where clients already do have an application in which you can just add an additional AR experience. However, the most immediate experience are web-based AR experience. You do not need to install an application. Users do not need to go to an app store. The examples that I showed, for instance, the Osmo case with a billboard that was becoming an interactive playground. This was a web-based AR experience. You just scan a QR code in order to be directed to a mobile AR microsite. And this is where the AR experience happens. So it's an immediate experience. You're directly guided to the experience. You do not need to, register or download an application, wait for it to install, and then start the experience, but it's immediate. And it's super interesting for any scenario where you want users to have an immediate feedback and an immediate action. And then you have social AR, and this is where we see the driving moments in the last few years, in the last few months. Companies like Facebook and Snap are investing huge sums of money in order to create AR experiences that are part of their social platforms, like Facebook and Instagram or Snapchat. WeChat as well, and there are several other iterations, which I will come to later. But this is interesting for those campaigns that might require the interaction of a big community, or if you want to create a branded AR experience, you might choose these channels in order to be close to the community and have community actions becoming part of the AR experiences. So these are the platforms, and if you look at the different scenarios where we can have and create AR experiences. Of course, it's shopping, where you can shop shoes, glasses, all sorts of fashion, but also makeup. This is interesting. And of course, where you can have products being displayed in augmented reality, merging the real view that you have through your camera viewport with virtual objects such as furnitures, sofas, or beds or couches or whatever. It's great to see if this product is actually fitting into my apartment. Is this the right color, etc., etc. And you can use this technology in order to avoid going to the shop, even though most of us like and enjoy the experience of going to IKEA. But still, this is it's an interesting field. Then you have real estate, of course, developing real estate objects, making them visual or visualize them before they're even built, or show apartments that are already built just by using and displaying a 360-degree video or a 3D scan of the apartment. Using it for recruiting matters is super interesting. Virtual fairs. During the pandemic, we had situations where we could not have a real trade fair, so virtual fairs, virtual meetings, just like the one that we are probably attending right now, is super interesting, but also for meaning of recruiting. And then, of course, education, teaching, telling stories in a virtual way to promote things that are super abstract, geometry. I wish I had something like this when I was at school. I think this would have enlightened me tremendously. But you get the idea: virtual events, virtual campus, virtual training, virtual books, pop-up books, etc. All these sorts of experiences. And then experiential per se and gaming, like outdoor or visual search, or scavenger hunts, for instance, or big out-of-home campaigns where you would have big billboards carrying AR experiences on top of them. That's also super interesting. Now, if you want to create an AR experience, you need to have some things that you need to keep in mind in order to create the right experience. First, as I said, you have to choose the right platform, native or web-based or social. Then you have to create the right call to action, because this is still something that users need to learn. Some of the target groups already know how to use AR, how to scan a QR code. Most of us have learned this throughout the pandemic. QR codes aren't evil, they aren't bad, that they're super helpful. But still, you need to explain, what does a user get when he scans the QR code, and how should he scan the QR code. So you need to have a right call to action, and this needs to be leveled to the right target group and to the right situation. Then you need to show the right content. You need to have the great experience. What do you want to tell? You need to focus on the first impression and onto the effects, because this is still something that users think of future technology. So it could have a future look and future feel to it. Then you need to choose the right scenario. Where do we want users to engage with the AR experience? Is it a product? Is it an advertisement? Is it a game, outdoors, indoors? This is something that you need to level, and then you need to find the right depth of interaction. And if you combine all this together, depending on the product, depending on the situation where you meet your users, what content you want to tell, what message you want to transport, then you need to level the right amount of content, or find the right amount of content. Maybe you already have content, but how do you channel it in order to make it experiential? So these are all questions that you need to think of, and that you need to level in order to create the best possible experience. Mainly, these are our experiences. You need to focus on the main purpose. What is the main message that you want to achieve? You need to create a fast and simple effect. And then you need to have the right fit between the placement of the AR trigger and the right content that the users get. Meaning, you need to have the right value that you add to the placement. And then the better all of these components fit together, to the particular situation that we want to meet users at, and the target group, the better the experience will perform. And this is really a great learning that we had through our last experiences, that the more we focused on leveling the right content and matching it and telling the right story, adapted to the right situation and the right scenario, the better the performances were. It's not just about using technology for the sake of technology, but you really need to think of what you want to tell using technology. So the technology itself goes into the background. And since we still do have some time, I might want to look ahead a bit and ask you and me, where is all that leading to? We have new devices equipped with new technology, LiDAR scanners, light detection and ranging, and these enable the devices to actually look further. Not just a two-dimensional image target that is being recognized and that we use to create an AR experience, but to create a depth sensing experience. This is my apartment. This is where I'm right now sitting. And this is how my iPhone would actually see the apartment. So it's a bit like the Matrix, but it's super accurate using this laser detection range. And it helps the machine in order to create a visual replication in a 3D room, which I could then use to place content in and create stories. And this is exactly where the big companies are heading to. This is Niantic, and they want to understand the world and create a planet-scale AR experience. We will see the launch of Niantic's, what's it called, Lightship, I guess. I'm outing myself, not remembering the name, but I think it's Niantic Lightship, which will launch next Monday. The interesting thing about this is that everything that is being scanned is crowd-based. So people use their devices to scan their environments, and this is then collected and stored in the so-called AR cloud, which can then be used in order to create all sorts of experiences with. Because the more people scan places, the more accurate the data will be, the more accurate the placement of content will be, the better the experiences will be. And this was something that Magic Leap already promoted a few years back, and they called it the Magic Verse. First, you have the physical world, then you have the replication of the physical world in a digital 3D model, a scan, and then you can use this to add all sorts of experiences, be it self-driving cars, be it experiences, be it wayfinding or pathfinding, will be entertainment on top of that. And think of it as the metaverse. This is the next big thing and the next big word that they all call it. But combining all of these possibilities to create a great experience, you can have a self-driving car. This is an example from a startup called Wayray, where they have head-up displays using augmented reality for cars. And you not only have your personal data, like my friend is close by. I know that he is here through location data. I will have an ad for the Brooklyn Zoo. Super interesting. And I have all sorts of navigation data like red lights, passengers walking, bus lane, etc., etc. But also creating sort of super abstract scenarios where we have the Matterhorn mountain in New York City, which is not happening. But think of the metaverse as a place where we have location-based experiences, or we can have location-based experiences. And this is something where Facebook is jumping onto, and you might have seen this, the press release, it's, I don't know, last week. It was, they will call themselves Meta now and create experiences for the metaverse, where people can meet virtually across continents. This one guy is sitting in New York, the other one is sitting in Barcelona, and people are playing virtual games, or you can have virtual meetups or AR experiences that are essentially part of the whole experience by design. Super interesting. And I was just talking about location-based data. This is where we will have the next big few advances in AR experiences, using location data to help you visualize content on a global scale in space. It's no more the Internet of Things, it's more the IoP, the Internet of Places. And this is where the big five are battling themselves. You have Apple with Apple Maps, you have Google with Google Maps, indoor and outdoor navigation, and the one who owns the data and the funneling of data on their platform will get the revenue. And we know that, but this is just the next step, the next advancement. And this is why they're all investing there. And if we look at Snap's developments, you will have location aware filters for select locations, but this will roll out soon on a global scale. But think of the possibilities that you have. This is Buckingham Palace. The device, your device will recognize where you are, where you're looking at, and then create a virtual experience on top of that very landmark. Super interesting. And of course, if we have global scale AR data from the locations, we can have persistence experiences and collaborative experiences in these metaverse places, you can call, right? This is an example from Snapchat, which is already functional. I introduced it last year, and people are in the same session at the same time, in the same situation as well, virtually as well as physically. And this is super interesting. Think of the possibilities that we can create. We can create something like this, experiences. This is the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin. When I was a kid, it looked different, and I can directly jump back into that, right? This is a nice idyllic beach nowadays, but 70 years ago, it wasn't. It was the most dramatic showdown in World War II. And think of AR experiences having you to tell a story about present and past, using technology, location-based data, everything that I just mentioned, in order to create something like this, a virtual gallery, a time machine, if you want to say. And this is not the future. This is happening now. This is an example from a developer in Japan, and he just used footage, original footage from the very location, and placed it on top of the live stream from the camera. And if you stand in the right position, you will have an exact match, diving back into time. So this is super interesting. And I hope I could just tell you about AR experiences and how to create AR experiences and what you can use in order to create great experiences and what you need to focus on. Always having in mind that we have not yet even touched the tip of the iceberg, because there's so much more development in this to come. AR wearables will be coming, and we have seen Facebook, we have seen Snapchat, we have seen Google, we have seen Apple. There are rumors about Apple producing AR wearables. But if we have planet scale AR and location aware experiences, then of course it's not difficult to think of experiences that will live on AR wearables. And if they could look like this, we don't know. There's still a few years to go in order to create something like this and have great experiences. And with this, I thank you very much. And this is the end of my presentations. And now I hope I can have some questions.